Now that we're logged into VALITAX, this is the landing page. From here, we can do the navigation. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to do my configuration. When we open up the configuration screen, it's empty, and the first thing we need to do is we need to add a unit. And a unit is something that holds all the configurations for VALITAX. So let's call it Tax and Technology. Save. So now that we have created a unit that will hold all our configurations, we can do our entity configurations. Basically, we have three entities. We have ourselves, that is the taxpayer, we have our customers, and we have our vendors. So let's first set up a taxpayer. We are a Dutch company, so add tax company payer. Let's go with the number 100. We have to give in our VAT registration number. It has to be in the correct format because otherwise we will get an error message. And we have to say that we are in the Netherlands. So we have our name, we have our number, we have a VAT registration, and the country we're in. When we press save, we can see it here. If we want to see the details of anything, we just press the information button, and we can see the details of our company and our registration number. So that was ourselves. I'm going to give an example of an AP invoice. So let's create a vendor. And it's a local vendor, so we're going to call it Dutch vendor BV. Give it a number, 200, and a unique VAT ID again. So I just do the numbers backwards. And again, this is in the Netherlands. When we save it, we can see that we have our vendor. So now we have set up the taxpayer, we have set up a vendor. And what I mentioned in the beginning, you can do more configurations here. And if you go to unit information, you can see all the tabs that can be configured. We have many options here, but the only thing for us now is that we're going to do the product mapping. And the reason we do a product mapping is that we need to be able to identify what we are selling or what we're purchasing, because that's very important for the tax treatment. So we've chosen to set up the products based on a GL account. So we go to GL account mappings. Here you will see a list of all the products that we have. I know that the example that I'm going to do is going to be around catering services. So I can search for a product called catering. And here we see the sub-products. We just select the general one. And what we say, I've chosen to do it by a GL account. And the number 5678. When I do confirm, I can see that this GL account is now linked to the general catering services in VALITAX. And let's do another product. Let's also do something around hotels. We search for a hotel. Let's take the general one again. And let's give that GL account number 1234. So now we have two GL accounts with different products mappings that we can do for our demonstration. So now that we have all the setups in the system, I can show you how the single transaction tester is working. I will first show you the invoice that we got. So we have taxpayer Dutch Co BV. So this is where the invoice was sent to. The Dutch vendor is the company that had done the service for us. So it's here. We have some additional information. What's our customer number? What's the invoice number? What's the date that it was done? And here we can see the description for catering services for 20 people. So as you remember correctly, I just mapped 5, 6, 7, 8 to catering services. So now let's go back to VALITAX. Go into the single transaction tester. Here is the screen where we can fill in all the information to simulate the transaction. We have the button for AP and AR. So if you want to do a sale, you put it to AR. If you want to do a purchase, you got to do an AP. I was going to give the purchase example. So what we just set up? We have set up a taxpayer. But before we start, of course, we have to select the unit because that's holding all the configurations. Tax and technology. Then we created the taxpayer ourselves, and we're going to buy something from our vendor called Dutch Vendor BV, also in the Netherlands. Because everything is already in the system, it knows which country it belongs to. Just to be sure, we're now buying a service, but if we want to buy goods, we also do the ship from and the ship to information. But since we're in the Netherlands, we assume that both are the same. Now we have set up who is buying, who is selling, and what was it? It was for 2,500 euros. In your assignment, you're also being asked to save a zip file. So in the flags, you have something to enable the audit trail and the zip generation. You will need this for your assignment. We also want to give in some additional fields because we want to identify what transaction it was. And here we did it based on the GL account. So we have 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the GL account we have defined for the catering services. So if we go now back to the main screen and we do calculate, we can see what the results here is in the results screen. We can see that it is a domestic transaction. It has a reduced rate. The location is the Netherlands. There's no reverse charge, but there's also no VAT deduction on this product. It's a catering services. This is the product code that I have mapped the GL account to. It was for 2,500 euros, and the VAT on the invoice is 225, but we're not allowed to deduct it because catering services is non-deductible. So here you see the result of this transaction. It has been asked to give you the zip file, and the zip file can be found on the details. Here you can click download zip with results, and it will download it on your computer. This is the file that you need to send in to validate if you're able to do the transaction for the sales. For now, I'm not going to open it, and I'm going to close it. For you, in the single transaction tester for your sales, you need to switch it to AR. So that's very important to remember. So now we have done the configuration, we have done the single transaction tester, and we can now do the batch transaction. You've received the file. Let me open it to upload the transactions. What we have done here and what I told you, a batch transaction is nothing more than you have multiple transactions in one file. So you can do the calculation for all, in this case, 10 lines at the same time. If we go to the beginning, here we'll recognize if it's a sales or a purchase. When it's a sales, it's an AR. When it's a purchase, it's an AP. We created the tax unit tax. We have the taxpayer that we created in a certain country. We also have a vendor. And what we have done, because you need to do it yourself, we only put in the country for the customer. We have added some ship from, ship to information, and here some GL accounts. So one is for hotel services, and this one is for the catering services. Here we also give in what the original percentage was on the invoice, and here we can see what the original gross amount was, and if there was a special location where the service was performed. So when we go back to batch transaction, it allows you to upload the file. If you do download template, it will download the template that I just showed you, only I pre-populated it. We can do an upload. It will ask for the CSV file, upload batch, and we can do upload file. You can see that it was for Dutch Co. It had 10 lines. We had 10 lines for a good call. There was no mismatch for I, and for 2, there was a mismatch. And for you, the question that you will find in the assignment is to understand what the mismatch is. So I'm not going into details. Here you can find the details for the transactions. So now we have done the calculation for 10 lines, and you can pull up that information from the archive. So if you click archive, you can see here the results for the test that was done on the 17th, and now it's today, it's the 20th, and you can just download the result file here. You can download it on your computer. Since it's a CSV file, we're going to import it into Excel. So you can go to Data, from Text CSV. We pick the file. And here you will see it's nicely loaded into a Excel format. And if you go and scroll all the way to the back, you can see after the from column BG, it does validations here. And here you can see what VALITAX calculated on these transactions, what the tax was, what's deductible, what's not deductible, what is payable, and what is receivable. There is a lot of additional information in there. There is some invoice information in here. You can find what it was mapped to, servers, if there was nothing in there. If it was a goods, if it was a domestic transaction, or it was a transaction within the European Union, what the rate that was, and from a reporting perspective, what the tax code is. So this is the result file of our batch. Please keep in mind you will be running it with different people, so make sure you record the date and download it. If you don't have the right one, you will be sending in somebody else's, and we can see who's sending what. So to quickly recapitulate, we have the configurations where we do all the configurations in. We have the single transaction tester. From there, we can do one single transaction and fill in the information for that specific transaction. And we have the batch transaction where we can upload multiple lines at the same time and doing the transaction. I want to wish you all good luck with your assignment, and in case there are any questions, feel free to reach out to me.